The first place, now it's going to sound stupid. I was going to bring this up as an example, but the first time I ever saw like an example of like healthy masculinity, for example, is really nerdy, Lord of the Rings. That's where it was.
Yeah.
Because like Aragorn, one of the main characters, like he is like your like tough guy, like warrior. He's got like a sword and he like defends all the people and he like has someone he loves and all this stuff. But then he's also really like affectionate to his friends in the movie. Like he'll hug other guys, like they touch each other. It's like a very like they show different levels of like platonic, like physical intimacy. And it's like done in like a very healthy way. And so, yeah, there's also obviously examples in real life, like you said. But
Bro, you lost me with Lord of the Rings. I tried to read that book.
I could feel it as I was coming up to it. I was like, I don't think this is going to work, but I'm still going to say it.
You're like,
going to go with
I love Lord of the Rings.
Someone out there there will be people out there that relate to it who are watching this. But anyways, I'm here with Isabella Santos, one of our actually first influencer / guest that is not a part of Trezor. You're our first guest. You'll be able to say that forever now. We've only had Trezor, people from Trezor on the show so far. You're the first who's not. And your project is BTC Isla, which will be the main topic of what we're talking about today. We'll come to that in a little bit. We'll start off with just a few questions here. I will say, I realized before kind of bringing you on that I have had this kind of weird bias in my head with like influencers in general, especially in the crypto space, is I almost have this expectation of like the very extreme influencer who's like, nothing can go wrong, like buy every altcoin, every meme coin you can find. Like we've all seen those. We know like the typical like crypto bro. And so as I was like watching your content, you have a YouTube channel, you have a website, you have these different like platforms. As I was watching that, I was like, oh, this girl like actually is like using Bitcoin for like its real use cases and like trying to do something good in the world. And I felt that kind of relief, I guess, based off my own assumptions, which I wasn't even conscious of it. I didn't even realize that's the way that like I default to a lot of influencers. Like I'm hesitant about it. And so seeing all of your content was like really cool because like I think I told you before, whenever we met before this, that we have our nonprofit Trezor Academy. And that's all about like educating people in Africa and like different countries around Africa. And yours is in Mexico, which we'll get to in a little bit. But a really cool project. So I'm glad you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. What I wanted to know is like, how did you get here in the first place? It seems like you just came out of like nowhere. And I mean, I might have the years wrong. I feel like I read somewhere on your website or heard on YouTube, maybe you just really got your start, like really got going like last year, 2023. Like what was kind of the journey for you? How did you get to this in the first place or get into your position?
No, I think it's just like the slow grind and the hustle that, are coming into fruition.
Like maybe the part we didn't see before we got to where,
because
I noticed too, I guess.
Yeah.
For the first time.
No, because honestly, like I do believe in the phrase that it's like bear markets are for building. And I took that seriously. Like I built during that bear market and I used it sort of like to perfect my craft. Many won't say like influencers, like you said, a lot of people look down on influencers.
Yep.
I don't consider myself an influencer. I studied journalism. So like for me, I've always loved to communicate, expose things and, connect with people and like show them the real things or like make them like have a good time. That's one of the things that I've always like known even since I was little. Like I know my purpose is like to leave the world better than I found it. And even if it's like to make someone laugh, like it makes it all worth it. So to answer your question, I sort of started in 2021. I got into Bitcoin during, like literally I was orange pilled at the Bitcoin conference in Miami, Wynwood in 2021, post-pandemic. And it was peak bull market. I'm talking about like
that 2021 wave.
2021 wave, like El Salvador announcing they're making Bitcoin a legal tender. You got Russ Ulbricht like giving an announcement in Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin conference. You got the Bolivars like thrown everywhere in like buckets and buckets of trash. Then you have like Tony Hawk in his skateboard. I think it was like his last year skateboarding. And
it's always his last year of
yeah,
skateboarding.
always. He's always retired and like
that guy's been around forever. It's like never ending. Which
like
I'm mad
like
cool
Mayweather. You know?
Yeah, him like Floyd Mayweather Jr.
Floyd Mayweather. He's always retired, but he's always on the ring.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, same thing.
But yeah, no. So I was like, and that's when I met Rizzo. And Rizzo actually, he's the one that was like, yo, you're a journalist, like you're on TV, you do videos. Why don't you like start doing videos for Bitcoin Magazine? So I started like literally man on the ground doing these interviews, these street interviews, asking people like what they knew about Bitcoin. And I wanted to showcase how early we still were. So that's sort of like how I started getting into like the video content creation in Bitcoin. And it slowly progressed from, you know, me doing street interviews to me quitting my job on TV to creating Bitcoin Backstage. It's a show that I do for Bitcoin Magazine. It comes out every week. And that was like a way for me to teach someone, but in the most simplest terms, but with like videos. Because there's a lot of podcasts, but I, like at the time that I was making it, I didn't really want to make something so long. So I was like, okay, experimenting with that. And then I met my business partner, Julian Figueroa, when we decided to go to Peru to shoot a documentary about Peru having Bitcoin circular economies with Motive. Motive is the organization that does it. And they have like 17 different circular economies. And when I met Julian for the first time, we realized we make a really good team. Like we have whatever the other person lacks in like a business aspect. And we decided to like join forces, and we ended up bringing on like the third part of the team, which is Adam. So with the three of us, we created Get Based, which is a production agency that we create sort of like tutorials and stuff. So it's kind of been like everything has kind of like built its way for me to be where I am today.
Like one thing chaining to the next. Yeah.
And thanks to Get Based, I was able to like create the show BTC Isla to showcase what I was doing on the island.
Yeah, that makes sense after looking into some of your content, because like I saw a lot of things you just mentioned like in your videos and stuff like that, like, and you'd been like a TV host prior to that too. So I guess you had some of that foundation or some of that experience to kind of help move into this exact type of work. Like
it's funny, like the world finds its way, like wherever you are in life, even if it's not what you're meant to be doing, that thing that you're learning will help you in where you're supposed to be. Like the things that I'm doing now, I look back at my life and I realize like all the small little stages that I was doing, like working at a TV station. Like I learned how to package a video or how to create a video. And like I'm doing that now, but I don't have the same guidance that I had back then. Like I have all the liberty that I can, do everything now. Or the job I had, it was in Spanish, weirdly enough. Like I was in Miami, but the whole team was in Spanish. The show was in Spanish.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that.
Yeah,
that's true.
So now I like sort of make like the production side makes Spanish videos, and obviously like I speak Spanish, and I'm the one that has to like write them and produce them in Spanish.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that makes sense, because like since I grew up in like Peru and also in America, my Spanish, it's kind of like a little chunky, and my English too. Like I don't think I perfected each language, so I'm kind of like mid in both languages. So I think that job helped.
I mean, your English is quite good. It does, certainly, I don't think it's like suffering too bad in any way. But
today I had to say the word alienated.
Alienated, yeah.
Alienated. And I was like, yo, I had never heard this word before.
Yeah, I guess that is the trouble sometimes with bilingual speakers. That happens here too in the Czech. Obviously, we're an English-speaking company, but we have a lot of Czechs, and sometimes they'll like search for words and stuff like that. But I mean, you are right in the way of like building something up like this. Like you mentioned, the bear markets for building. Like, absolutely, there's a lot of people who get all hyped on these waves, like the 2017 wave, the 2021 wave, or bull market, I should say, the bull market for each, and the one we're kind of experiencing right now. The big bull market recently hit like 90,000, and now it's going crazy. Like, a lot of people are in it for that, and then it turns out they were just in it for the hype, and they're out. Like, as soon as it all dies down, it was just a big, like, social thing. But there are people who stick around where, like, something really struck a chord with them. Like, oh, maybe there's something to this, and it keeps you going through the whole thing. And I've heard a version of that story from someone. Like, mine is like that. People here are like that. Yours, like, that is like, that's a textbook case of like something gets you hooked. And like, what was it about for you? Do you remember like the moment, like what it was about Bitcoin that really grabbed your attention, or what it was that you were like, maybe there's something to this?
Well, the moment that made it all click, sort of like, I've always not like been a rebel, but I've always hated laws and rules and like being put in this little box. So when I met Bitcoiners,
that sounds like a rebel.
Yeah,
to me.
No, but like, I don't know. When I met Bitcoiners for the first time, I kind of realized like two things. Like, one, like I liked how they were stepping out and questioning the system, and the other one was, these are the smartest people I had ever talked to. I don't think we realize how much of a, not like a simulation that we're in, but ever since the minute you're born, everybody tells you what you need to do. Like, they automatically put you like in preschool, then you got to go to school, elementary, middle school, high school, college. Then you graduate and you're sort of like, nobody's telling me what to do now.
Yeah.
You know, like, they tell you that you need to do everything. You know, you got to get a job. Transition. Then you got to like go to the bank, and nobody questions it. Everybody just goes with it. It's like, oh yeah, we're supposed to do this. And the more I spoke with like Bitcoiners, they're kind of like, bro, like the system's broken, you know?
Yeah.
And I did the work, obviously. And that's when I like found the receipts in a way, you know, kind of like to be like, yeah, the system is broken, you know, because in society nowadays, we kind of like, people just go with what is said on social media, you know?
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Like, somebody's
big thing influencing people's like thoughts and feelings. And
everything is being influenced. Like, even like, I feel in a way the United States has mastered that, you know, like, I feel like
tech companies and media companies in general,
everything, it is controlled to the T. Like, we don't realize how much someone can persuade you to choose something and make it seem like that you chose it.
Or things you're like not even aware of, like how you're being influenced.
How you're being influenced.
I think a lot of that stuff, it's a very uncomfortable idea for people. Like, nobody likes to feel like they don't have control over their own lives or autonomy over their own lives, which ironically is exactly why we're emphasizing Bitcoin here, because that's the thing that it gives you. But yeah, you find that a lot, like, and it I think very much correlates and ties into what we're talking about of like an established system. There are ideas that work, but it's just, to me, the thing that really stands out is how people have to feel like they're like 100% one thing or 100% the other. Like, it's okay to, I don't know, own a car and drive to work, but you don't have to accept every single facet of information that's given to you, or like, you say like the big thing is like going from school to work, and like how funny it is that school is structured exactly like a 9-to-5 like factory worker. Like I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, but it's like, that is suspicious. Like the fact that we've worked out a system that's built for like this pyramid of like just doing your 9-to-5 job and never really going outside of that for anything. Or like, inflation being argued. That's another one. I always feel like, you've heard people say like a little bit of inflation is like a good thing. Like, that's an argument I would always hear about like fiat money or traditional government money. And it's like, yes, you can make certain arguments for that. Like, the big one is like if you buy a house and like the inflation helps you pay off the house. But there is so much more, if you stop and think about it, that is damaging than there is beneficial. It's like, it is a complicated conversation, but I don't feel like we have to like reach very far to be like, it's not good for you like going to the grocery store. Or like it can be any common good you want to buy.
We were not like that. When you go back looking at history, like, people used to fight back for the government. The government used to listen to the people. You know, whatever they said, like back in the early 1900s, when they didn't want a central bank, they couldn't have, like the US couldn't have a central bank. That's why we have the Federal Reserve now, when they changed the name for it, because they knew the people didn't want a central bank. So the thing is like, and you just have to follow the history of everything. Going back to the school system. School was invented by Rockefeller. He founded the whole thing. So it's kind of like when you trace back the history and the origin of things, you realize where the intention comes from. Like Rockefeller wanted a lot of workers. So he funded the schools. I think it was Rockefeller.
Yeah,
It was Rockefeller, right?
Yeah.
I always get like Rockefeller and Carnegie, like, and all those guys from the same era, like messed up.
They're not the same guy, but they're basically the same
guy.
Like,
and it's kind of like that. Like he wanted more workers, and if you look at it, just how the whole system, and there's so much wrong with the educational system, like that you can go off, you know, especially like with having us not critical think anymore. People can't critical think anymore by themselves. Like when they give you an exam in the States, it's A, B, C, or D. And in Europe and in South America, at least they have like open-ended questions, you know, to allow you to think and explain your answer. So
I remember the first time I had a professor who was like, I don't do multiple choice. Everything is written response. And I was like, what?
Yeah, like, you were like, wait, I actually have to think?
Write all this out. Yeah, it was one of the hardest classes I've ever taken, but I also learned more from that than almost any other class that I had, because having to produce that way, like, really gets your brain to work.
Well,
and you have to learn things in order to produce that way.
Bro, college made me more stupid. I will bet money on it. Like, I remember graduating high school, and I feel like I was mid, you know, like I graduated pretty, like, top 5 of my class. And then when I went to college, the classes that I took, I was like, what is this? I'm not even using my brain. You know, they teach you how to like hack the system in a way. I remember like trying to look up the exams because the professors would reuse exams. So it's kind of like, if they're giving you the answers, why aren't you going to take it? You know, why do you need to study if you have the whole answers?
And so you went from there, was like the hosting job that you had the first thing you had out of college?
No. I mean, I've worked since I was like 15. I love to work. And like during like I knew I've always wanted to be a TV host. So when I was in college, I had an internship.
Like from a younger age.
Yeah. And when I was in the university, I was an intern for Telemundo, and I graduated peak pandemic. I'm talking about May 2020. So
that was peak pandemic.
Yeah,
that was exactly
literally.
You were that class where everyone was like,
that,
all these kids are like graduating in the middle of this thing.
I never walked down the aisle.
Like, that sucks.
I never walked down the aisle for. So that's always gonna be in the back of my head, you know. But after that, well, obviously I thought I was going to get hired by the company that I was interning at, because that's how it normally used to play out. Like you intern somewhere for like 2 years, they give you the job and you like build from there. But that didn't happen. Thank God, you know. And after that, I went into the startup, which is how I found Bitcoin. The startup was called Ecom Daily News, and I was running this sort of it was like a newspaper, but online for anything that had to do with e-commerce. And it was at the time where China had like this huge boat that sunk. And I was like, we need to report about all the shipments that are coming in and explain all the e-commerce related news. And that's how I stumbled across Bitcoin. The conference came and I ended up going there. Then I quit that job, and then I got the job at TV for Hola TV, where I was like a producer and then a host, and then I quit.
So you went from that and then eventually to Get Based, which is the production company.
And now I have the
BTC Isla, right?
Yeah, well, BTC Isla and Get Based go hand in hand.
Right, yeah, because you said some of that production is happening with them as well, right? Like how you're getting the YouTube videos up and stuff like that. So yeah, what is BTC Isla? Like I've watched some of the videos now, so I have more of a grasp on it. But just for everyone else, can you give like an overview of what exactly it does?
So BTC Isla is this passion project of mine. It started out with the idea that I wanted to orange pill the island, but how life, I was telling you, has its way to make things happen. I went to Peru to shoot this documentary and see what Motive was doing.
Right, you
And
mentioned Motive earlier, and I hadn't heard about them, but they like help set up
Bitcoin
something.
circular economies.
Right, so it's not just education, but actually getting the economy
Yeah.
like up and running.
It's crazy what they're doing.
But it does include education.
It includes education. Right? What they do is they use Bitcoin as a tool for freedom. Like that's one of the things that they offer. They empower these people, and it's mostly women in these really poor cities in Peru. And they teach them how a skill, and then from that skill, they teach them how to do a business from it. So you have in Cusco, they teach them how to sew. Then in Quebrada Verde, that's by Lima, they teach them how to bake. And in each of these communities, they create businesses so the women start charging in Bitcoin, and they can sort of like escape and break their societal norms.
These are practical hands-on skills.
Practical hand-on skills. And when I saw what they were doing, I was like, no. That's what I want to do. Like, I don't just want to orange pill the island. Like, what good is that going to do to like life? And I wanted to use Bitcoin as a tool for freedom. So I went back with this idea. I remember I told Valen, I was like, Valen, I want to do what you're doing, but I want to do it in Isla Mujeres, Mexico. This was 2023 in December. Fast forward to February. I like to do things now. Like when I get an idea, like I hate waiting up. I need to do things now. So I moved from Miami. I was in Miami at the time. I moved from Miami to Mexico in February 2024. And that's when I decided. I was like, fuck it, let's do it.
So just earlier this year.
And
how were they using or I guess what was the Bitcoin doing for the women in Peru that I guess other traditional forms of money like couldn't do? Or how is it helping them?
Well, the thing in Peru is the way that the system is in the outskirts and like the very rural, poor areas is they live in a very sexist way of life. Like they're very machistas. Machistas means that the guy, like they view how it used to be. I feel like nowadays men and women are sort of viewed as equal. But the way that it works in Peru in these areas is that the woman has to give her money to the male of the household. So whether it's her dad or whether it's her husband, she has to give her money that she's earning to that person, to the male figure of that family.
So just like nothing for herself.
Nothing for herself. But the thing is, it's not that great because that person, that male figure, is like an alcoholic. Most of them. I'm not saying all of them, but most of the time they're abusive, they're alcoholic, and they spend all that money with alcohol. They don't really work. So the woman has to literally provide for that family while they're being abused, and they can't escape that system. So what Motive is doing is sort of giving them the way out.
Right, so that's where the physical skill comes in, and then like they're being paid in Bitcoin?
They get paid, well, when they sell their stuff, they get paid in Bitcoin.
Okay. So they're receiving this to their own holding or control.
Yeah, so they can literally save up and leave, and the male figure doesn't know, like, because they don't understand. The male figure doesn't understand what Bitcoin is. They're used to cash.
Yeah.
So, and they're also, what they're doing is, like, that's just not the beginning of it. Like, you guys have to literally go figure out what they're doing because it's insane.
Yeah, Motive does this in like different locations as well,
in different 17 locations. I believe they probably have more now in Peru, but they're also literally like teaching English. They teach them about like how to be normal human beings. We don't realize, but there's other societies out there and other communities that are stuck in the past, as in they live day to day. These people that I'm talking about, they don't have bank accounts. They don't have, their social security. They don't have IDs. They live peer to peer. The government sort of has forgotten about them in a way. And thanks to COVID, they have put cell towers in these places. Because during COVID, everybody had to go back to the computers and schools were off. So at least, the government did do some of their part. But, and that's how now they're able to use Bitcoin.
But that's so interesting and cool, because one of the big arguments or criticisms that people have with Bitcoin is what does it actually do? It's not worth anything. It doesn't have any practical use. And we use words in the community like empowerment and freedom and independence and these different words that you hear tossed around. And it's well, what does empowerment mean? I mean, that's a perfect example. Something that is giving power to a person, doing good in the world, giving you control and autonomy over your own things. And it's in the States, or the bank account thing, that too. In the United States, we make all these assumptions. And even there, not everyone has a bank account. But it's if you're someone who's always had a bank account since you were 16 years old when you started working, it's you don't even think about that. To a lot of people, that's a barrier of entry. Bitcoin doesn't have that barrier. There's no you have to qualify. For everybody qualifies for Bitcoin. Anyone can use. There's no you have to be this type of person or whatever to use it. It's just open and it has zero restrictions. And then it's especially in places where we didn't explicitly say this, but where the currency of the government gets damaged. You mentioned the bolivars earlier. It's there's many countries around the world where a government mishandles money. And
all of them. Tell me one that knows how to.
Sorry, yeah, that's
all of them.
The nuance of that word. Mishandles for sure. That's pretty much everybody. But where it's actively being damaged, the value of the currency itself. And that's the thing with the dollar is everyone talks about the dollar being the universal thing, the thing that everything's pegged to, the reserve for the world. And it's sure, in the short term you don't really feel it. But in the long term, it only loses value. It doesn't go up. No. It only declines. And that is something this is the distinction I've started making with people is and the big criticism with Bitcoin, or one of them is its fluctuation. Mm-hmm. And it's yes, there is short-term fluctuation, but long-term it has been consistently up. It has only grown. It has only gone up. And it's done so in much shorter periods of time. There's one of the common pieces of advice for the stock market, for example, is no one's lost money in a period of 20 years. If you put money into the stock market, you'll eventually come out on top. First of all, I don't even think that takes inflation into account. But second of all, the Bitcoin period is 4. If you put money into Bitcoin, maybe in 2012, you could have argued against this, or 2015 when it was still a newer technology. But now we're 15 years in. And there has not been a period of 4 or more years where it hasn't gotten stronger. If you put money in, you had more after 4 years, or it had more value, is how I should word that. And that's something you can't say for a lot of our current system. It is a problem that is being solved. Bitcoin can't be printed. You can't make more of it. It's another thing that happens. And so it's when people talk about these practical things, what does it do? What problems does it solve? It's here's 4 or 5, all these things you're talking about and these problems we see on a daily basis. Those are the things that's actually affecting in real life. Most people are just unaware of it. I don't think people are not stupid. I think the brain is capable of understanding things.
They're not stupid. They just don't know the system is broken, or they don't realize how broken the system is. And
it sounds crazy if you've never heard that idea before. If it's your first time hearing that, you might be whoa, whoa, whoa. You might get defensive, this is the thing I've always known. Why can't you trust it? And it's if you start thinking about it, there are a lot of problems.
Bro, you got to do the homework. That's the thing.
Most people know that too. They know it to a degree. They know they need to educate themselves. They know they should. They know there are problems.
But they don't.
Yeah, it's just people.
They're lazy.
It's just that people aren't doing
but
it.
But
That's
it goes
the only
back to the system that they've trained us to be lazy, to be dependent on them. Someone that is broke will give more profit to the government than someone who literally has their financials figured out.
That's true.
That's healthy. Yeah. That doesn't own any debt to them. Mm-hmm. And people don't
their country
realize.
Runs off of debt. It's a debt-based system.
It's crazy. No, but the thing is, when you do the search and you figure out how broken the system is, there's a time that you realize, crap, there is no hope. What is the solution? And I feel like Bitcoin is the solution for this. Mm-hmm. People just don't see it yet. So most people I hear them talk and they're like, they know that they keep going in circles. And most of them, like I was listening to a podcast and they're saying like, yeah, we're hitting a recession. You need to have Bitcoin, gold, and cash. And it sort of goes back to that. Like we are going into like a pickle. I feel like the whole world's entering a really big pickle. And we need to figure out the solutions to escape. And it goes back down to Bitcoin. Like,
yeah, and I didn't mean to pull you away from your story about BTC Isla because I asked about Peru and all of that. But as I understand now, so that was kind of the inspiration for you kind of moving to where you're at now. And so you took that idea, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you took that and then you kind of moved it to, it's Isla Mujeres?
Yes.
That's what it's called.
Isla Mujeres.
Like the
Mexico.
Island off of Cancun,
yes,
right? Okay.
Island off of Cancun.
So like, how did you get started there? Once you saw this, like what was your process for bringing that to life?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I really thought everybody was going to be down to learn about Bitcoin. And the thing is, you have all these Bitcoin circular economies, but I couldn't find sort of like this blueprint to follow.
Right.
I was like, oh, what do I do next? You know, I start a school. All right, I'm going to hit up like the public school system and say, I got a free class to show.
Yeah, there's not really an established route for like,
there isn't.
How do you start Bitcoin education?
How do you? So I decided to like, I was like, I'm going to start school and offer this class until I realized nobody really cared. Nobody cares to know. If nothing's broken, people aren't going to find a solution, and nobody thinks nothing's broken. Everybody thinks everything's fine because that's what they know.
All right. So if no one perceives anything to be broken. Okay.
So also, especially in an island, when you live in a bubble, the people that are native to
what
that
is the
island,
context here? Like just
so you guys have a better understanding. Isla Mujeres is 13 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. So you can run the whole
it's like a
island.
Narrow island.
Yeah, it's really narrow, and you can get through it in a day. Like literally, you can run. It's a half a marathon.
What's the population?
22,000 people.
Okay.
But there's around 250 to 500 merchants. So there's a lot of businesses there because it's a tourist destination.
Yeah.
But there's also a ton of locals. And the locals, their dated life is they're either waiters, they are bartenders, or they work in hotels, you know, in serving other people, or tourism. They focus on tourism on the island, or fishers. No, fish. What do you call people that fish?
Yeah,
Fishers.
Fishermen?
Fishermen.
Yeah.
Fishermen. I'm like, that's an interesting one.
Fishers. I think they both work.
They both work. Well, a lot of people do a lot of fishing there, and their day-to-day sort of, they live day-to-day in a way. They make around 250 pesos a day, which comes down to like $17-20.
Okay, yeah, that's a conversion.
Yeah, the conversion. So imagine living like that, you know? But that's how they've been taught to live. So they don't know any better. They don't want to succeed. They're succeeding, or the way that they succeed sort of comes naturally to them. Not naturally to them, but let's say you work in the same place and they give you a promotion. It's not that they were seeking the promotion. They were just there for a long enough time and they got the promotion. Yeah. So they're not driven. They don't care to succeed. They don't even, it sounds fucked up to say, can I say bad words?
Yeah, we'll go for it.
Okay.
We'll find out in
We'll
post.
find out in post.
Either people heard it or you got bleeped.
Okay, you can bleep it.
Nah, we'll let them piece it together.
But that's the thing. They don't want to succeed. It's not sad because I guess you live however you want to live.
There's a kind of a fine line between like, okay, a bunch of tourists are coming here and like hitting the economy versus like exploitation. Like it's kind of this weird gray area, and it's very easy to try and justify that if you're the one on vacation. Like, we're making this place better, which in my opinion, that's kind of an arrogant standpoint of like, I'm like coming and like helping by spending money and having a luxurious life or whatever. But like, it's if people are like trapped in the situation they can't get out of. Like,
but the thing is, it's crazy how their mind works because they don't save money. So there's high season and low season for tourism on the island.
Because like tourist seasons?
Tourist
that's what
season.
that's referencing, yeah.
And they come from November to March. And it's sort of changed a little, but this is for the sake of
Right, because that'd be
the
like
explanation.
a cold period everywhere else. So you'd have like better weather there.
So
I'm
much
assuming?
better weather. And the weather on the island is amazing. Like it's not super cold. I mean, it's not super hot because it's super humid there during June, July.
Yeah.
And you have these people like that literally are making a good money during high season. And you'd think, oh, let's save it for the low season when we barely make any money. Because most of the restaurants close on the island during low season.
They're just not even operating?
They don't operate because it costs more money to keep it open than to close it. So you would think, oh, I'll save a little bit for, you know, the rainy days.
Right.
No, they spend all of it. They don't know what saving is.
So just like no financial literacy.
No financial literacy. Yeah. But that's anybody in the world. Like
it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. But they're like them, they're to another level. I'm talking about they make 250 pesos a day and they're spending like 750 pesos. You're like,
okay, so they're outspending the income.
Outspending the income.
So like at any given time, just throughout the year?
Well, the thing is like when I was doing the math, I was teaching one of the classes. And this semester of this class, I was like, I'm going to teach them about saving and why the importance on saving. And we're like, all right. I was like, okay, how much do you make a day? You know, okay. They're like 250 pesos. Okay, perfect. So 250 pesos, you work 6 days a week. You know, like I start doing the calculations. We're like, okay, how much is rent, light, internet, your cell phone, your food, everything they need to spend their money on, it didn't make sense.
So you're just like balancing.
I was trying to balance it out, and I was like, bro, you need to, first of all, they need to start making more money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To even like live a normal life. Like it's like you're suffocating. You want air, but there's no more air.
Do they have an avenue for that? Is there any way for them to increase income?
Their way of like sort of having more money, they call it tandas. Tandas, it's sort of Ponzi scheme, not like a Ponzi scheme, but a pyramid. You know how if a pyramid scheme worked well, it sort of works. You know, like we're 3 people in the room here. So each of us, we put in $100. So we put 100, you put 100, you put 100. So we have 300. And we alternate. For the month of January, you get all $300. So instead of having 100, you just get the 300. Then on February, he gets the 300, but we put in the 100. So he puts 100, I put 100, you put 100. And then he spends however he wants to spend his $300 with. Then the following month in March, I get the $300. So I spend it however I want. But the thing is, when they get all that money, they spend it. They don't save it.
So it's just like a high.
So it's like a high
getting
money.
This like big hit.
Yeah.
That's the system? Like
that's a system. Or another way that they save, they only save for special occasions, like for a baptism or for
like
the
wedding,
quinceañeras. For their 15,
yeah.
like the sweet 16, but for them it's quinceañeras. And how I figured out that they save is they put literally like a bucket in their house and they just throw in extra change. And by the time their daughter is 15, they turn over the bucket and
so
they're
like over years this is happening.
Yeah, over years. And
I will say that is a valid saving method. Is physical like placing something somewhere.
Yeah.
If you can do it, if you have the discipline to not touch it, because that's the key. You can't like
but they
can't
save
go pull
pennies.
from it at
I'm
some
talking
point.
about pennies. So
just like basically scraps or change, whatever you've got, like that type of thing. So when you come in here and you're talking about Bitcoin, like what how does this work? Or like how do you educate people on Bitcoin in the first place? What's your strategy or direction? How are you bringing this to people?
Well, I'm trying to figure that out right now. It's hard.
That's an ongoing process for you.
Yeah, it's hard to get people to care about something that they don't even know they should be caring about.
I mean, honestly, yes. That's like it's literally in a way exactly what we're doing now for just a different audience. Like that we're in the adoption phase. I've brought that up in almost every podcast so far, but it's like this is the adoption period where we're trying to get the word out and get it into people's heads as to why this is important and why it's helpful and useful to everyone.
And education is a huge component.
Yeah.
You can't expect to like reach hyper-Bitcoinization without the education component. Like the price go up will go only a certain extent. But if you don't know the full capabilities of Bitcoin, then it really doesn't matter whether you're in it. You know what I mean? You need to get and fully grasp Bitcoin and its potential, like how we were talking about before. Like, if we think that if Bitcoin does what we think it will do, it will disrupt the whole system. And it's just disrupting it now, but to the extent that it will go, it's crazy.
Like the expectations that the community has for the future.
But the thing is, people need to know how to manage their Bitcoin, know what it is, and like sort of what it stands for.
Right, that's a much bigger gap. If someone has like zero financial literacy, that's a much bigger gap you've got to shoot than someone that at least like is someone who's familiar. Or actually, I did hear you say before that that can almost be an adverse effect where if someone's so used to the traditional system, it can be hard to grasp Bitcoin, which is what we see a lot. Versus maybe if someone's starting from zero, it can be easier to get from point A to point B. I don't know what you've seen.
It's easier, but the thing is, so I've tried to teach it to both. Like obviously with my parents, I try to teach
You've had
them.
experience
It's
with
really
both
hard.
parties?
Yeah, with both. But the way that I see it is you have to tackle them differently. It's harder for me to teach to the islanders because I can't relate to them. I didn't grow up in their shoes. So putting myself in that perspective, it's so hard.
So just situationally different.
Because someone that's educated or like that's studied into the system, you can tackle them like with the banking system, fractional reserve. You're like, okay, look at it. The bank doesn't even have your money. Then you go through that route. Inflation is just taxes. So you go through that route. If that doesn't work, then you start going with how much debt the government is in. Then you go to like, why is the United States the head like leading dollar? Like, why did we make the dollar the global reserve currency? Then you go to like Bretton Woods Agreement. Then you go to 1971. And obviously, I have all my like books from Mi Primera Bitcoin, the curriculum that has all of this. And I'm like going in, I'm like, I'm going to tell them the system is broken. They don't care about the system being broken. They don't care about saving. They don't care about taxation. They don't even pay taxes. They don't have bank accounts.
It's like that expectation versus reality. Like for real, like that's what you actually encounter.
That's what I encounter. So they're like sitting there and I'm throwing these words out. They're like, yeah, you guys know what trading used to be? Who trades here? They're all looking at me like, this woman's crazy. And I'm like, So I've been trying to switch my teaching mechanisms towards them.
The approach, I guess.
Change the approach and just really go back to the basics.
Yeah.
You know, going to like, yo, this is peer-to-peer. This is just another way to have money. You know how the dollar always changes against the peso and the dollar always rises up? Like, I believe 2 years ago, $1 was equal to 16 pesos. Now, $1 is equivalent to 20 pesos. So I'm like, yo, guys, the dollar is similar to Bitcoin. So how the peso is to the dollar, Bitcoin is to the dollar. So it's sort of changing my approach and just making it simple for them. They probably don't care about Bitcoin mining. They don't care about the halving. They don't care about a hash rate. They don't care about a node, that you need a node, that you can literally mine in your house with a BitAxe. Which I did, I'm not going to say that I didn't. I did make that mistake the first time. I lost them. And if I do, I have to step back and evaluate my end goal, which my end goal is to create a Bitcoin circular economy. What do I need by that? I need to have merchants that accept Bitcoin, students that will spend Bitcoin, people that spend Bitcoin and will create that Bitcoin circular economy, and then the jobs. Offer jobs that you get paid in Bitcoin. That way you start having, once you have the 3 little legs of that system going, you start building a Bitcoin circular economy, you know, switching out or adding sort of like a new monetary system there. And if I do want that to happen and want to create a Bitcoin circular economy, I need them to know how to use it. I don't need them to mine it. I don't need them to run a node. Yes, that would be the ideal situation, but we have to be realistic here. Not everybody that will use Bitcoin will know what that thing is or will know how it works. They're just going to use it. We're all using the internet nowadays. Nobody knows how the satellite works or that whole system works.
That's sending communications,
The sending
underwater cables
communications.
and all this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we did, we would have more internet servers.
Mhm.
That's like another system on its own that we're,
Yeah.
sort of, the internet is sort of centralized and people don't really talk about how
Well,
centralized
that
it
is a good point on, the fact that for adoption to completely occur, it's like not everyone has to understand exactly what's going on underneath the hood or every single aspect of the technicals of Bitcoin. It's one of those things where like it's definitely a rabbit hole, and
Yeah,
if you're gonna jump into it, like it's effectively never ending. Like I've attempted to do this, and I haven't even reached like my first goals of learning about everything that I want to know, and then I know there's even more beyond that. Like you can keep diving and keep digging like even deeper. But yeah, how would you say like you're pacing? So, or actually, you know what? Another question I wanted to ask was like, what I guess for these people, you said in Peru, it's like it helps empower like some of the women through like the Motive organization. So for people here on this island, like what is Bitcoin going to do for them in the long run, would you say? Or what does it look like to you, your vision of that, when if you've succeeded in everything you want to do, what does that world look like if you've accomplished your mission there?
Bro, honestly, to give them like fresh, like not like fresh air, but sort of like space to breathe
Mm-hmm.
because they live on a day-to-day basis. They can't afford to miss a day of work. They miss a day of work, they're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Some have children. How do you pay for your child's food?
Yeah.
And what I want to accomplish with them is for them to be able to be like the tourists that come on the island.
Mm-hmm.
The other class, I was looking at them and I was like, bro, look to the right. You have the Americans and the Canadians, that those are mainly
You mean
the tourists.
physically, just
Physically,
like look
literally,
over there?
look on the right, and there was a restaurant right there.
Uh-huh.
And they looked over, and you have all these tourists sipping margaritas, looking at the ocean. And I was like, that's never going to be your reality if you don't start changing what you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't see long term. They're so short sighted. They are worried about the next day and the next day. I can't blame them. That's how they were raised. But it's kind of like breaking those patrones and breaking those cycles and teaching them to look further, like work today so you can enjoy tomorrow. That type of mentality. And I feel like in a way, Bitcoin takes that pressure off because you're not saving in a currency that's going to devaluate and that's going to be non-existent in the future. You're sort of saving in a currency that's literally going to save you. So
yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, that's something where I feel like I think about that all the time. Like it's something that not everybody is on board with that idea yet. Like we said it at the beginning, but like it's only gone up and it's only gained in value because like we use the term sound money a lot. And it's like, what is sound money? A lot of these terms are not actually that complicated. It's just we don't use them that often. So if you hear it for the first time, you're like, oh, I don't know what that is. And then that immediately turns people off. But it's just money that is not prone to like insane like depreciation or inflation, like upward or downward movement. And stability is, I think, the next thing on like Bitcoin's list. Because like we said, like the short term, it does move up and down, but long term, it just gets stronger. And that's something that a lot of people just don't accept. Like I said, a lot of people aren't even aware that it's only a fixed amount of Bitcoin in the first place, and that you won't ever have any more, which is why people often compare it to like digital gold.
yeah.
And for so long, it's been, to the average person, it's like a laughable concept. But then once you start learning about it, once it clicks for you, once you get it, it's like there's no going back from that point.
There's no going back.
And I honestly, I do get why people are so hesitant because like, I just remember that world. I remember it was like the before and after Bitcoin for every person. It's like when you didn't get it and then when you did. And it's also a weird line because it makes you like, I don't want to I make jokes about being arrogant a lot, but I don't actually want to come off as an arrogant person. I don't want to be like, I've got this big secret that you don't have. And like, I'm a winner and you're a loser because I have Bitcoin. Like that's a message that I see a lot just in the Bitcoin space. And it's something that like, one of my goals here at Trezor is to kind of like help change that reputation of like, we're more like inclusive of like everyone. Like we said, there's no barrier to entry. Like it's Bitcoin is for everybody. Like we say that's a thing in the community. It's for everyone. And that's a message that has not landed or even been heard by a lot of people. A lot of people haven't even heard that phrase or heard those words. They've just heard like the crazy hype, and like there's some, like I also get the hype at the same, it's exciting. It's exciting when it goes up. So there's like, yeah, no, I understand that as well. But it's caused a certain demographic to like be dismissive of it. And it's like the worst thing that you can do right now, I think, is be dismissive of this technology.
I think it's the ego that gets in the way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, like, I don't want to attack anyone, but I'm like, yeah, kind of.
Everybody thinks they know more than the other person. And I think when you get into Bitcoin, it's sort of like being being humble and being like, bro, I don't know anything. I'm going to go start in the bottom and like start reading, start researching, do your own research, figure out like how you would learn and how to explain it to somebody. And that's what we're missing. Many people, one of the barriers to entry is their ego. They think they already know enough. They're like, oh, I'm 50, I'm 60. What else am I gonna learn? I have already learned everything. I know how the system works. And they don't want to
learned everything.
Yeah. They don't want to step aside and be like, well, I learned all the wrong things. And that's when, they gotta
Yeah, I think for me it's just like acknowledging holes in in what you know. It's like I don't think anyone's like, I'm not saying like you're not a learned person. I'm not saying you're stupid, but it's like, don't put down this thing without like actually learning about it first. A lot of the mind, and like, to be fair, like your brain has a hard time wrapping your head around something that's intangible. Like if you can't see it, you can't touch it. It's hard for like the mind to get around that. The internet had the same problem. Because when the internet was young, like in the 90s, people were like, what are we even going to use this for? Like, how does a computer work? Like, it was used for like mathematical calculations, I guess, prior to that, and not really for personal home use. Like, individuals weren't using it a lot. So it's very hard for people to like wrap their heads around it. And we're dealing with that problem now, where people are like, it's not something I can put in my wallet, literally, physically. And that's hard for people to like grasp. It's a difficult thing.
Bro,
so I get it from
with
that
the 24 words.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so complicated to explain to someone that doesn't want to put in the effort to learn.
And that's the other thing we're trying to make progress on. Yeah. Like, because even before the words was like a long string of random characters.
Right?
And it was like, well, that's never going to work for an individual.
That's your key. And then, oh my goodness.
And so it's like, how do we get this down to something that's a little more manageable? So the words are like now something readable. It's like words that you know in your head already, and they're easier to write down, easier to store. So it's like those improvements are only going to benefit everyone. Yeah, like certainly that'll improve, and we'll look at in the mid 2030s, we'll look back at the 2020s and be like, man, I can't believe that's how it used to be, because we'll have made so much progress in that point. Anyway, I have a tendency of just like, I get excited about this stuff, and then I take us on these like roads in this conversation.
No, earlier today I was talking about like self-storage, like cold storage, and like being able to self-custody, like what it meant and everything. And it's truly, truly impactful. Like the situation that we have right now, the sort of the gift that Satoshi has given us of being able to hold the keys to your own money. I don't think anyone that's alive today has lived in, honestly, like a sound money system. Yeah. Like a good monetary system. I don't think no one alive today has lived it. Yeah, you could say gold, but at the end of the day, it's like that with gold, that's when the banks started coming in, and people would put gold in the banks. Yeah. And then they would hand out the checks, and then... Or
when you had to turn in gold. I think it was the 30s where the government was just like, you have to turn it into the government. And that's... I don't mean to keep stopping us on these points, but yeah, every time you bring something up, I just want to talk about it. But it's like when like people don't actually own their own holdings. Like if there's another like bank rush, or like there's a collapse or anything happens, like that is not sitting in your hands. The bank has that, and it can freeze, and it can fail, and it can fall apart, and it has happened in the past.
And bro, in 2023, we had like 6 banks collapse, if not more.
And like it wasn't like the whole system came down, but that should alarm you. It should be a point of concern. Like,
but you know why
we
it
should
doesn't?
be thinking about these things.
Because the Federal Reserve prints more money and bails these banks out.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, there's a solution. But they don't realize they're getting taxed for that. And it builds
there's a cost.
There's a cost.
somewhere.
There's a cost.
Yeah, we talked about it before, but like, or I brought this up recently, but like how I was watching like an interview with a guy that someone will have to fact check me on this. I'm saying it into the camera now so that someone can do it. I don't remember the exact context, so I just want to have qualified the statement before that. But I'm 100%. I watched this video of someone who was in like high up in the financial system of America. It's a clip on the internet. And the guy's he's being interviewed by someone else, just like a journalist or something, and he's like, so when you need to like print more money, like what exactly is the process? How does this work, and where does the money come from? And he goes in and this isn't verbatim, but he says, we just go into the computer and we just type in the number. And he's like, you mean you just like, there's no printing, it's just digital? And he goes, yeah, just on a keyboard, we just like add some zeros and then there's more money. And I was like, that is insane. It is crazy that is how it works. It shouldn't be, but it's like,
literally hit print.
Yeah, that's all you have to do.
You can't do more.
We have memes about it. There's like internet memes, but it's actually what happens.
Like Jerome Powell with like the printing gun.
Yeah, a lot of things are like exaggeration. Like a lot of memes are parodies or satire. But this is literally how it works. Like that is actually what is happening. It's not physical cash coming off a printer. Like that's the one difference. But they genuinely just go, and there's like, more money. That's how it works.
Let me just go get my little cash. And the funny part is, then you go into the Cantillon effect, where they're the ones that benefit the most, and we are the ones that get screwed over because we get the high prices and we never see a rise in the paycheck.
Like every day you hear people going, man, things are expensive. And it's like, yeah, you're right. They sure are.
We were talking about that yesterday, how literally people have to have 2 to 3 jobs just to stay afloat.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I think the tourism in Isla Mujeres has gone down, because people are so broke.
Has it? Like where you are? The
tourism has gone down a ridiculous amount, like 40%. Mm-hmm. And my theory is that people just are broke. People are broke. They have 2, 3 jobs. Like before, they used to have 1 job. And in the States, if they only give you 1 day of vacation per month that you've worked, that's a bare minimum. And that's how it used to be. So imagine on top of your job, you have 2 jobs. So you got to ask for vacation for 2 of them. But at the same time, you don't even have money to pay for, to stay in a hotel, to pay for your hotel, for a plane ticket. Life is expensive.
We know people will do that if they have the money.
They'll
definitely do. Like nobody dislikes being on the beach.
No,
everybody wants to go there. So
everyone
wants
to travel.
If people have the means to do it, they will do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, God, that got me like real riled up. That got me real feisty. Just talking about that.
Well, you used to live in the States. Your friends, how many jobs do they have?
Oh yeah, I've had tons of friends who are balancing multiple, especially if they had kids. Like when I worked in the restaurant industry, it was like anyone with a kid was not working 1 job.
No way.
And that was 10 years ago. Like that was a while ago that was happening. So now definitely now.
And the crazy part is you were in the food industry. When you go to the people that just graduated college, they are literally getting jobs at places that pay way less than McDonald's. McDonald's actually has maintained a really good salary compared to like these jobs that are that are being offered to people. You have students that are in like 60, 100K in debt, and they can't afford to get a decent job. So they have to get 3 jobs. No. Life is hard. We are in tough times.
Yeah. When I think of it that way, when I think of like the conditions, like I graduated 2013, so it's been over 10 years.
So you're lucky. Yeah. Look at you.
That's what's funny is we didn't feel lucky at the time. It was like, man, because we came out of like the 2008 recession, and like we're like, man, we got hit with that. And then it's like I can't even imagine graduating now and then like wanting to buy a house.
No.
It's like I'm not even thinking of that. That's not even like a consideration that I have. I just go, I'm not going to have a house. That's what I think. That's all.
A house?
That's my life. No house.
A car.
Yeah.
Don't even go too far. A house is like way over your head. Getting a car now, People don't have the money.
Yeah.
When you, I looked at the statistic. This was back in 2021. So that number has definitely changed. People's savings in America, there's, I think, more than 80% of the population in America, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't even have $5,000 to their name.
Yeah, I think that's most people. Yeah.
And that goes to show something's wrong.
Mhm.
What do you mean you have $5,000 to your name?
Yeah.
Like, no. You need to educate yourself. And it goes to that. The schools don't want you to be like financially literate. Is it that how you say it? Financially literate?
Yeah. Financially literate.
Financially
a lot
literate.
of L's.
Yeah, it sounds funky.
in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll try and again. I feel like I derailed us again, but no, I was glad to talk about it. It is nice whenever I find someone else who just like gets it, like they're on the same page. Because I'm like, I don't have these conversations. Well, I do now, I guess, working for Trezor more often. But it's like, it does make you feel like I feel like I'm a fairly reasonable person. But when you, like, I went back to the States this year, and it is very hard to defend yourself when someone's like, what do you do for work? And it's like, I make videos for a Bitcoin company. like I'm not embarrassed. I love it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great thing, but that is so hard to sell to people because so many people, they're like, what and how? And I will say it's a good opportunity for like spreading the message and the education and everything, because then you can really give it some legitimacy. It's like my family member or my friend that I know is working full-time in Bitcoin, which that's like not a very common story. And it's becoming more common, thankfully, but like that it's a sign of like the way things are going, but it's still just like we were talking about earlier. It's not something that people are like, that's not the space they're in. They're not like ready for that. They're not thinking about it. And so like getting that message out is really like what we're trying to do here.
I don't know if it happened to you too, but sort of like once you're into the Bitcoin space, you can't talk to people that are not into Bitcoin. It's sort of like you start realizing that all their conversations are full of shit. You know, they care about stupid things that you think going there and you're like, bro, the whole system's broken. And you're talking about if you just walked your dog and that's your form of conversation for the rest of the night. You know what I mean? It's insane. You have your Bitcoin friends and then your normal friends that are not into Bitcoin. And there's this huge kind of difference in this topic of conversation that you go back and forth in. And it also goes to like when I used to work my fiat job, it's like you have your fiat life and then your Bitcoin life. And obviously all Bitcoiners want to merge both. Yeah. But it's just funny to see how, you know, now I go to places and it's really hard to make new friends. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if it's my age or whatever, but trying to make new friends. And if they don't have the same values, which means like if you're not a Bitcoiner, it's kind of hard to see where we connect. Yeah. In a way.
Yeah, I've mostly just gone the way of trying to find where those connections are or where we can explore that conversation. Because if someone's like really into traditional finance, I mean,
oh my goodness,
crypto has, I will say it's gained more legitimacy, but it's largely just be considered either like a joke or like something that people don't touch. Like we don't talk about crypto here, that kind of thing. Or with family members, it's like, where can we find the thing that we relate to? I don't like
gets shorter and shorter every time.
I try not to emphasize the differences. It's more like, can we agree on this thing? And then like how, like, can we agree that this is a problem? And a lot of times you can kind of find mutual ground there. I think that's a good way to approach it. But obviously it's a much bigger walk for some people than it is for others. You're not going to have like, it's not going to be as easy or as fluid with one individual as it is with another, depending on where they are in that journey or what they've learned or whatever. And again, it's like, yeah, my whole point is like, to me, it's inclusive. Like, this is not like I'm in my party and you're not. It's like, I want you to be in the party. I want you to come, like, enjoy this thing and be educated about it with me. It's not like I'm cool and you're not. It's like we can both enjoy this thing.
You just open your mind.
Yeah.
In a way, it's sort of like Bitcoin is this filter. It filters out like the real people. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I sound so hater, but
it's only for us.
It's just funny because I've noticed like this change not this change recently, but it's like Bitcoin gives you this common ground. And if you're a Bitcoiner, kind of means you stand in similar values.
Mm-hmm. Well, just to kind of round us out here, like what would you say is like the biggest takeaway? This is back on BTC Isla. I said I was going to bring us back to this, and then I didn't. We just kept going for another like 10 minutes, which still I'm fine with. But yeah, I do. It's my responsibility to keep us on track. So yeah, what would you say after everything you've done? And I mean, I know this is like it's still a project in progress for you, and you're still working towards things.
Yes.
What has been your biggest takeaway from working with BTC Isla so far?
My biggest takeaway is patience. I am super used to getting immediate, not feedback, but immediate
Like
gratification.
Yeah.
That with BTC Isla, it's been a slow progress. It's been so slow that I calculate it will take me around 2 to 3 years to see some results that I'm content with. Obviously, I'm happy with the small wins, and I know the small wins will add up to big wins.
Yeah.
But it's this long process that I just need to be patient. You know, I need to create this blueprint. If I can do this, then anybody can. You know, there's no exceptions. You know, there's no excuses. Everybody's quick to put excuses like, oh, I can't do this where I'm from because, I don't know, I don't live at a beach. Or I can't do this because I'm by myself. Like, yo, I'm starting it by myself too. You know, building the team from the ground up. And I'm teaching that person that I want to be part of the team about Bitcoin. And it shows how big the Bitcoin community is and how generous. Ever since I launched the project, I've been getting a huge amount of support. And
I think it's awesome. It's a really cool
huge.
Project.
It shows you that humanity isn't dead yet. You know, so
Not
everybody,
yet.
not yet. There is hope. But people want to help out. There's people that I have from like Australia or the United States or
you
Europe.
had a video of a volunteer, didn't you? It was like someone came to volunteer from the States.
A volunteer from the States flew in to be one of the boots on the ground. You know, some people are like, hey, I can't help. Like, I can't physically fly there, but what can I do to help? And my biggest takeaway would be that, you know, how generous the Bitcoin community is, how they want this to succeed, even though that they can't physically help. There's other ways that they like, you know, reach out for help, and they're like, you know, what do you need help with? Do you need me to help with like the flyers or create a pitch deck for the businesses that you want to orange bill?
Yeah.
So that's been one of the coolest things that I never thought that I would experience it. I thought I would have to like do this way longer for people to like realize what I was doing.
It seems like you've picked up momentum quite quickly. I mean, yeah, the things that I've seen you doing and the stuff you showed me of like the actual curriculum that you have running, which we didn't even touch on that. You have your own curriculum.
No, it's my first Bitcoin, mi primer Bitcoin. They have a curriculum.
Yeah.
In El Salvador. It's super open source. Anybody can go in and translate it and help out and be part. And they've sort of been my blueprint on how to run the school. But at the same time, I have to tailor it to my students. The way that it works for them is really different. Well, I'm realizing I have to add some things and eliminate some things, like I was saying about
different
Bretton
levels
Woods
of like grasping
agreement
or interest and stuff like that.
I don't think I'm gonna like. My students don't care about Bretton Woods agreement. I've tried teaching them about it.
That's a part of the curriculum.
That's part of the curriculum. Like they touch up on it.
Yeah.
And I have to be sort of unbiased because for me that stuff is super important. You know, Bretton Woods, 1971, everything that happened during that time, the Fed. But I have to realize that not everybody's going to care about that. And my students really don't care about what's going on in the United States.
That is a good attitude to have. I mean, that's humble, and that is what is going to get you progress in this. Like, the last thing you want is to lose people. Yeah. So, like, if you've got to adapt it, like, do it.
You have to adapt.
I think it's a smart idea and, like, a good approach for sure.
Thank you.
Are you still, like, how much of you is looking at your overall vision? Like, are you using that as a guiding principle if I want to get here? Or are you kind of just taking things day to day? Like, what is it for you?
I do need to work on figure out like my next steps. Like if I do this, then what? But right now it's just sort of day to day. There's problems that arise every single like day, but my overall vision and guide is that the 3-part system. You have one part orange pill the merchants and have them not orange pill them. It's hard to orange pill the merchants, but have them accept Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Next year, I do want to have a course for business owners because they have a different education level than the islanders.
Right.
Then I want to educate the islanders and have more people using or having Bitcoin, because the way that I inject Bitcoin into circulation is through paying the students. I pay them for showing up to class. Some people might get mad at that, but for me, time is even more scarce than Bitcoin. You know, that's something that you will never get back. Yes, you can get more Bitcoin. You can buy more Bitcoin. You can work for Bitcoin, but your time you would never get back. So I pay them in Bitcoin.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
because they make so little. I can't expect them to invest in Bitcoin while I'm asking them to dedicate their time and learn about it at the same time. So for me, what I've found that works is giving them Bitcoin so they can stack sats while they learn. So by the time that they graduate, if they realize that, they get their aha moment, this is, the solution, or I like it, I'm going to invest in it. Or they see it right now. For them, what's really convincing them is we're entering a bull run. And they're seeing the price go up and their eyes light up. They're like, okay, she's onto something. She's not crazy. She's not scamming me, because that's another issue. There was a
that's
scammer
a very
on the
common
island.
theme you see in the
a
Bitcoin
message
world.
to someone that scammed someone on the internet. Fuck you, man. You're making this so fucking hard,
that
man.
does make things a lot more difficult for all of us. Yeah.
Bro, that person should go to hell. Like, who
It's a terrible thing to do.
It's such a bad thing, especially to people that have no money. What I've realized is scammers scam the people that have the least. Especially freaking bakers.
Like the most vulnerable
Yeah,
people.
like we were even talking about that. You know, even with the IRS and taxing and everything, the top people don't pay taxes, but the little people, when they mess up their taxes, boom, go to jail. You know what I mean? Which
it's
sucks.
like, as soon as it's someone at the bottom, like they have a giant magnifying glass.
Yeah, it's like, you stepped out of line.
This guy right here, he shorted us $5. Well, on that note, thank you for so much. That's a perfect way to end it, I think. It's like, thank you so much for coming in. Again, Isabella Santos, BTC Isla. It's so exciting to see what you're doing out in the world and in the community there, because it's like, that's the kind of stuff. I know for me personally, I'm not even speaking behalf on Trezor, probably also Trezor as well, but like I see that and I'm like, that is so cool. And such a cool thing to see, like this project that is actually like trying to help people and cause change in the world is like, that's like the real vision of like Bitcoin. There's of course, it's like a great way to save money. Like you're going to make more value over time, but then seeing actual impact in the world, like that's the real stuff. Like, I think that is so awesome. So we started, thank you again. We have a tradition here that I've started calling awkward handshake, where you have to lean off mic and just give a handshake off the mic like that. There we go. Since everything's in your way. But that's it. Thank you again so much for coming out and for giving us some time just to learn about what you do.
I know. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We'll see you around.